The galactic peaceform's capital world, Aurelos Prime, floated like a golden jewel in space, its skies lined with the banners of 100 species, each more advanced and elegant than the last. It was here, under the great domes of light and crystal towers, that the War Simulation Games were held, an annual event where the galaxy's most powerful civilizations gathered not to fight real wars, but to test their military minds in controlled, holographic battles. It was a place of pride, prestige, and tradition. This year, for the first time in its history, the Forum had extended a formal invitation to a new species, humanity. The humans arrived in a modest fleet, sleek gray ships, smaller than most, quiet in design but polished, disciplined, and neat in formation. At the head of the delegation was Admiral Hayes, a calm man with steel gray eyes and a still posture that said more than any words. Alongside him was military-attached Zara Lynn, young, sharp, and observant, her gaze moving quickly across every corridor, every monitor, every unfamiliar face. As their ships docked and the welcoming ceremonies played out, it quickly became clear how the others saw them. The aliens, some towering, some insect-like, others floating in shimmering forms, treated the humans with curious smiles and gentle tones, like teachers meeting students on the first day of school. There were no open insults, no disrespect, just quiet amusement. "Ah, Earth, the death world," one diplomat said, raising an elegant brow. "You've come far for a species still measuring history in centuries." Another added kindly, "It's good that you are here. This is a time to observe and learn. You will enjoy watching the strategies of the real powers." Zara kept her responses polite, but inside she noted every phrase. These species were not preparing for any real war. They were showcasing polished moves, patterns of pride and ego, dressed up as science. And yet, none of them questioned their own superiority. The War Simulation Games began with bright fanfare and dramatic commentary. The arena and artificial solar system rendered in pure data was vast and detailed, allowing fleets to clash in near-real conditions, though no real damage was ever done. The first match saw the Zallaride defend a simulated moon from the Brannick Armada. The patterns were precise, the movements elegant, the commentary full of praise. But Zara noticed something. Strange, the strategies were too perfect. The attacks followed predictable paths. Every ship responded the way the others expected. There was no randomness, no human-like improvisation, no raw reaction under pressure. It was all clean and cold chess without the chaos. Even when one side won, the results felt rehearsed. As the second day passed, she shared her thoughts with Admiral Hayes during a quiet moment in their observation chamber. "They don't fight to win," she said. "They fight to be seen. They're showing off doctrine, not testing adaptability." Hayes gave her a brief nod, but said nothing. He simply kept watching the screen, where two fleets were currently locked in a spiraling duel, exchanging beautifully calculated blows. The human delegation had not been allowed to compete. "Perhaps next cycle," one organizer had said. "For now, it is better if you observe. See how it's done." Zara didn't argue. Neither did Hayes. But that night, a private transmission reached their secure channel, a signal from Earth Command. It was short, only 2 words: "Authorization granted." Zara stared at it in silence, then looked at the Admiral. He turned, his face as calm as always, and said, "Prepare the team." The message was clear. The time for observation was over. Earth had decided to stop hiding what it could do. And in the next round of the games, the galaxy would see, for the first time, how humanity truly fought. No scripts, no patterns, just raw, unpredictable power forged on a world where survival had never been guaranteed. And when that moment came, no one would be laughing. The morning of the third simulation brought a quiet shift in atmosphere. The council chambers were filled with familiar energy diplomats and commanders from across the galaxy gathered in shimmering balconies and crystal viewing domes to watch the latest round of the war simulation games. The Tralax Coalition, champions of the last 7 years, were scheduled to demonstrate their advanced AI fleet maneuvering against a mock pirate ambush, a simulation designed to showcase control, precision, and flawless response. Everyone expected a clean match, a Tralax victory, and nothing out of the ordinary. But then, a soft alert pinged on the master console, a late request from Earth's delegation to participate in the match. A friendly match, they said, just a chance to test their fleet for educational purposes. The request triggered laughter in several sectors of the chamber. Let them have their match, one elder said, her wings flickering with amusement. It will be good for morale, the council voted. The motion passed, and Earth was in. Zara stood at the command deck of their simulation suite, her hands hovering over the interface as Admiral Hayes gave a single nod. Across the arena, the Tralax formation powered up sleek, silver ships arranged in flawless combat pattern. Guided by quantum AI systems, they predicted opponent behavior in real time. They had never lost a match. Not once. They didn't expect to now. The countdown began. The spectators leaned forward. The lights dimmed across the arena, and the simulation started. From the first second, something was wrong, at least to the Tralax. The human ships didn't move in clean lines or by traditional formations. They scattered. One broke left, two flew straight into a radiation cloud, and a third fired a decoy. Missile at empty space. I hesitated. It had never seen ships behave like this. The Tralax adjusted, sending scout drones recalibrating. But Earth's fleet moved like a swarm of angry, half-drunk insects, erratic, unpredictable, and fast. Then came the surprises. One human ship dumped a line of glowing plasma behind it, blinding the Tralax's high-range sensors. Another used its own damaged hull as cover, slamming through a minefield the AI had prepared. Zara grinned as a wave of harmless cargo drones, painted with sensor-jamming ink, flew directly into the path of the AI's flagship, detonating low-yield charges that disrupted its central coordination hub. In moments, the perfect Tralax formation began to bend. The AI adjusted again, sending orders to flank. But the humans didn't follow logic. One ship reversed course completely and crashed straight into a communications relay, cutting off half the Tralax fleet from shared data. Another deployed debris scrap metal from their own hull, magnetized and guided by tiny thrusters to strike key engines. Every move the humans made was wild, strange, and impossible to predict. The Tralax I couldn't calculate the risk fast. Enough. Every second it hesitated, Earth took another shot. 10 minutes into the match, the Tralax formation had broken completely. Their rear guard collided with their left flank. Their heavy cruisers had been disabled by bait-and-switch attacks, and their flagship had been cornered by 3 human ships spinning in chaotic loops. The final blow was not a missile or a beam butt. A drone, disguised as wreckage, that latched onto the flagship's sensor dome and triggered an overload. The arena lights flared. The simulation froze. The scoreboard lit up. The crowd fell into complete silence. The Tralax had lost. Not just lost, they had been defeated in record time. And Earth's score wasn't just high. It was mathematically perfect. No losses, no errors, no wasted energy. For the first time in decades, the Tralax AI had failed. In the silent aftermath, as whispers slowly spread through the crowd, Admiral Hayes stepped forward on the projection display, his hands folded behind his back. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The message had already been delivered. Earth had joined the game. And they hadn't come to learn. They had come to remind the galaxy what a true Deathworld species could do when no one was watching, until now. The defeat of the Tralax Coalition spread through the Galactic Peace Forum like a crack in glass slough, sharp and impossible to ignore. For the first time in living memory, the perfect war machines guided by flawless AI had been outmaneuvered, not by superior technology, but by something far more dangerous: unpredictability. In the days that followed the match, the council chamber, once filled with polite amusement toward humanity, turned colder. Some tried to dismiss the event as a fluke, a rare success born from chaos rather than skill. But others began to dig. Files that had long been ignored were pulled from the archives. Translations of human history were reprocessed. Strategic records were analyzed, and what they found disturbed them. Humanity's past wasn't filled with ceremonial war or simulated battles. It was soaked in real conflict. Thousands of wars across centuries, fought on land, sea, sky, and space. Tactics that evolved not in sterile labs, but on blood-soaked fields. Doctrines that didn't just respond to threats, but embraced them. Human commanders had led fleets through collapsing wormholes, had won wars while outnumbered 10-1, and had built empires from the ruins of their own mistakes. Most species shared strategy as theory humans had learned it through survival. The more the Council studied, the more concerned they became. Earth's military training simulations were more advanced than what the Forum had ever used. There, doctrines adapted in real time. Their fleet commanders weren't born into power. They were made through failure, forged in crisis, sharpened by pressure. And then there was the human concept of total war, a term some species couldn't even translate properly. When Admiral Hayes was asked to explain Earth's aggressive maneuver during the match, he replied with a calm expression, in a single sentence: "You never asked what we were capable of." That line, recorded and repeated across the chamber, sent a silent wave of discomfort through every diplomatic channel. Earth hadn't just won a match. They had lifted the mask. And behind, it wasn't a primitive species trying to catch up. It was a Deathworld force that had never needed help to begin with. While the Council debated in closed sessions, Zara Lynn kept her eyes on the back channels. Using Earth's secure observation tools, she monitored transmissions that passed through encrypted nodes, patterns, phrases, timing. And one night, she intercepted a coded message buried inside diplomatic chatter. A joint training exercise had been planned between the Threx Dominion and the Olarin Syndicate II, powerful races with long histories in Forum leadership. Officially, it was a routine maneuver, scheduled near one of the outer system corridors. But Zara wasn't fooled. Neither was Hayes. The location overlapped with Earth's return path. The timing was too perfect. It wasn't an exercise. It was pressure. A move to remind Earth of its place. Zara brought the information directly to the Admiral. He read it once, then again, and said nothing for a long time. Finally, he spoke with a quiet certainty. "They still think we need to prove something." But Earth's leadership had already expected this. Human intelligence, monitoring galactic patterns for months before the invitation, had predicted some form of response, some attempt to measure, or perhaps intimidate. That's why the diplomatic fleet was only part of the deployment. Quietly, without fanfare, another group of ships painted black, silent, signal stealth had already slipped into nearby systems. No weapons raised, no threats declared, just silent observers, watching for the moment masks would fall. Hayes issued his orders. No bluster, no threats, no show of force. His plan wasn't about overwhelming strength. It was about ending the game before it could even begin. Using the Council's own rules, Earth deployed a series of non-aggressive countermeasures: jamming satellites, signal reflectors, and a fleet-wide shadow net that would misreport Earth's position to nearby sensors. Meanwhile, Zara rerouted one of Earth's small civilian transports through the suspected ambush zone. Its logs filled with planted evidence that the ship was carrying key navigation data back to Earth. It was bait, and the Threx took it. Their ships moved into position. The Olorin followed. But just as they prepared to initiate a scan and disable protocol under the guise of inspection, their systems flickered. For exactly 7 seconds, all their targeting arrays showed 20 human ships where there should have been one. Another 5 seconds later, all navigation systems reoriented themselves 80 degrees off course. And then the message came not from Earth's command, but from a quiet relay on the civilian ship. You are surrounded. You just don't see it yet. That was the moment the joint fleet pulled back. No shots fired, no official action. The mission, whatever it truly had been, was aborted. Back in the forum chamber, the news spread quietly. Some still claimed it was just rumor, but others had seen the sensor errors. A few had received unofficial warnings from allies who had once served alongside humans in older conflicts. The message was clear: Earth was no longer the student. It had been studying the rest of the galaxy all along. And now, the galaxy was starting to realize that the quiet species from the Death World didn't need permission to act. It had only been waiting for the right time to move. The stars above the neutral zone burned bright and silent, untouched by the war games unfolding beneath them. Officially, it was just a scheduled exercise between Allied Fleets 1, final maneuver before the Galactic Peace Forum returned to diplomatic matters. But those who watched closely knew better. Threx Dominion and the Olorin Syndicate had surrounded Earth's detachment under the pretense of a shared drill. They brought 30 ships, heavy cruisers, sensor destroyers, and elite scouts, all wrapped in friendly signals, but positioned in a clear, tightening circle. The human ships sat still at the center, only 6 vessels, mid-sized, dull gray, barely armed compared to the advanced warcraft surrounding them. No distress signal was sent, no shields powered up. They simply waited, silent and still, as if daring the larger fleets to make the first move. Aboard the Threx flagship, Commander Halvik gave the order to initiate soft targeting scans, claiming it was part of standard data calibration. But as the sensors locked on, the image of the human fleet shimmered and vanished. Entire ships disappeared from the interface in less than a second. At first, the Threx thought it was a malfunction, but then the Olorin ships lost contact. 2 followed, by a sudden failure in local comms. Static replaced all transmissions. Attempts to redirect signal traffic failed. Guidance systems began to drift. Star maps flickered and realigned with impossible trajectories. Artificial gravity pulsed, cutting out and returning in brief, nauseating waves. Within seconds, order collapsed. Threx pilots reported seeing multiple Earth vessels in impossible positions, some simultaneously on both sides of the fleet, others phasing in and out of sensor range. Olorin ships attempted to reset targeting systems, only to find their own engines refusing input. Onboard weapons began locking themselves down. Ammunition bays sealed tight. Security systems triggered false alarms, flooding internal decks with alerts. Several ships tried to move away, but without stable navigation, they crashed into one another. No shots had been fired, no missiles launched, no visible action taken. And yet chaos spread like fire through both fleets. What no one had realized, what only a few on Earth even knew, was that humanity had deployed something never before seen in forum space, a black ice warfare system. Not a weapon in the traditional sense, but a digital ghost network. Invisible to standard sensors, silent on all frequencies, and designed to cripple not through destruction, but through confusion. It exploited every known protocol, bent every assumption of stability. It didn't destroy ships, it turned them against themselves, and worst of all, It did so without a trace. Aboard the EHS Vantage, Admiral Hayes watched the enemy struggle. Through the tactical screen, his ships remained dark, no visible signal, no outward glow. His crew said nothing. They had rehearsed this moment for years, waiting for the one time Earth would allow them to show their hand. Zara stood beside him, watching readouts from the enemy formations. No damage reports, she said softly. No confirmed casualties. All hostile ships ... non-functional. Hayes nodded once. Time to shut it down. A moment later, the human ships pulsed with a brief signal, clean, narrow, and bright. One by one, systems across the Threx and Olorine fleets came back online. But not before the full extent of the chaos had been recorded by dozens of automated observation platforms scattered across the zone. The exercise ended not with a shot, but with silence. Earth's ships returned to view, still untouched, still armed, still untouched by even a scratch. Later, when footage was reviewed by council officials and military leaders across the galaxy, the reactions ranged from disbelief to fear. The simulations couldn't recreate it. The systems couldn't explain it. Every test, every measurement, failed to track how Earth had done what it had done. The Forum had known Earth was resourceful. It had seen the strange tactics and wild strategies. But this was something new. Not chaos, not madness, but control, precise, deliberate control over the battlefield without ever needing to strike. The message was now clear to all. Earth hadn't been weak. They had been quiet. Not because they lacked power, but because they had never needed to show it. Until now. And across distant stars, in hidden chambers and quiet command rooms, the question began to rise. If this is what humanity could do in a demonstration ... what would they do in a real war? The council chambers, once filled with laughter and quiet jokes about the strange new Deathworlders, now stood in complete silence. The recordings of the training exercise had been replayed dozens of times across dozens of systems, and still no one could fully explain what had happened. No shots fired, no visible weapons, just confusion, paralysis, and the quiet reappearance of the human fleet as if nothing had happened. It was not just military power that had shaken the council. It was the control, the discipline, the clear decision not to cause harm when the opportunity was there. Delegates from over 40 species sat in tense rows as Admiral Hayes was invited. To speak, he did not posture, did not brag, and made no threats. His voice remained calm, measured, and firm. He didn't bring fleets or escorts into the chamber. He brought one message. Humanity is open to peace. We are ready to trade, to share knowledge, to build alliances. But never again will we stand quietly under someone else's shadow. We seek no conquest, but we will never answer to fear. A ripple moved through the hall, not of fear but of realization. Zara Lynn stepped forward then, standing on the same platform that once overlooked Earth's introduction ceremony. Her eyes scanned the same faces that had laughed behind closed doors. Her voice was steady as she gave her final words. You laughed because you misunderstood our silence. Now you understand it was mercy. With that, Earth's delegation turned to leave. There were no demands, no ultimatums, just a quiet exit that left a much louder echo in every corner of the room. Within hours, Earth was granted full strategic recognition by the Galactic Peace Forum. Not just a member, but a superpower. The Tralax Coalition voted in favor. The Threx and Olorine abstained, choosing silence over conflict. Even the oldest, most reserved species, the Valari Elders, signed a technology-sharing treaty with Earth the following day, the first such agreement they had offered in centuries. Across the stars, stories began to spread, not just reports, but whispers. In military academies, officers studied Earth's simulated battles, and Black Eye's tactics. In distant outposts, captains recalculated their emergency protocols. No longer did anyone speak of humanity as a primitive death world species. They now spoke of Earth with a careful mix of respect and caution, not out of fear of what humans might do, but out of awe at what they chose not to. Months later, when a new threat emerged, silent ships drifting from the dark edge of the galaxy, carrying unknown signatures and no recognizable language. It wasn't the Council that received the first alert. It was Earth. A beacon lit up in Sector 9C. A distress call routed directly to Admiral Hayes. The voice on the message was desperate but clear. "This is Patrol Unit 47. Unknown vessels approaching. No response to any frequencies. Requesting assistance ... from Earth." Back in Earth Command, under the pale blue lights of a high-orbit station, Admiral Hayes stood beside Zara as the transmission played. He said nothing for a long moment. Then he gave the order to deploy, not in panic, not in anger, but with quiet certainty. The galaxy had laughed once. Now it watched. And this time, when the sky turned strange again, they didn't ask the Council. For protection, they called the Deathworlders. And Earth answered.